Welcome and thank you for joining the NEHA National Webinar Series. I'm Christy Denbrock, Chief Learning Officer at NEHA. Today, our presenter is Susannah Krysko, who will address effective strategies for bedbug inspection, control, and protection. Susannah has worked for over 20 years in cooperative extension, sharing research-based information to the public on safe and effective pest management strategies for homes, yards, and gardens. She served as the program manager for Northeastern IPM Center's StopPests and Housing program at Cornell University from 2014 to 2023. With funding from HUD, Susannah provided integrated pest management training and technical assistance to hundreds of affordable housing providers across the country. Currently, she is a community IPM specialist with the New York State IPM program, promoting IPM in schools, housing, health departments, and community organizations. She holds a Bachelor of Science from State University of New York, a Master's of Science in Sustainable Systems from Slippery Rock University, and continued her education in entomology at Cornell University. During her presentation, please feel free to write any questions you may have into the chat box, and we will address them at the end of this presentation. If you are not a NEHA member and you enjoyed this session, we invite you to become one at neha.org. Susannah, you have a fabulous presentation scheduled for us today, along with a poll. So if you would like to go ahead and jump in and start.
Okay. Okay, so thank you so much, Christy, for the introduction. I want to say my thank yous first to Dr. David Dijak for inviting me to give this presentation and have the opportunity to talk to you guys. And thanks for the behind the scenes work from Brandy. And I want to also take a shout out to Harry Hafer, my colleague in Omaha, Nebraska, who introduced me to Dr. Dijak, but also opened up my mind to the idea that building inspectors, health inspectors, code enforcers, you all have a unique opportunity to not only find problems, but offer good, effective advice. So my job at StopPests since 2014, I was working on a HUD contract to provide technical assistance and training to affordable housing properties. I can't reach every property, so it really helps to give good information, to widen the circle of information, so people who are getting into more properties have this knowledge too, and they can have a direct opportunity to maybe make an impact in some of these buildings that are struggling with infestations of bed bugs. Currently, I'm working for the New York State Integrated Pest Management Program that's part of Cornell University's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I hope in the future to have the national program back, so keep in touch, check out my website. But currently my funding just allows me to work in New York State, but we'll be back national, hopefully in the next years. My website is stoppests.org. It's like a clearinghouse of information for affordable housing properties and property managers, all about, all the things that you would need to implement integrated pest management, which I'll explain, in affordable housing, in low-income housing, and even in multifamily housing. So check it out if you're looking for resources for landlords, for residents, for homeowners. There's a wealth of information on that website. Today we're going to cover what is IPM and how can we use it for bed bug management? What are the best practices for inspection and monitoring? What are the treatment options? What actually works? We know a lot doesn't work. What does work? And personal protection, because I know in your jobs, a lot of you are going into these homes with bed bugs, so we don't want to bring those back to your home. And then this idea that I've been stuck on lately, how do we inspect more than just a home or an apartment or a building, but how do we take that inspection to the treatment plan? What are they doing that's working? What are they doing that's not working? What advice can we offer? And then I'm going to talk briefly about what doesn't work, just to, um, squash some myths about bed bug control. I have to apologize in advance. Some of my photos are quite graphic. I think this is a crowd that probably has seen worse, so I won't apologize too much. But I think that you guys probably understand, like in this field, we tend to take pictures of the worst case scenarios, right? It's not so common that I see a very heavy infestation. Most bed bug infestations are low to mid-level infestations, but doesn't make a good picture, right? Like you sometimes can't even find the bed bugs in those low-level infestations. So why I'm saying this is I don't want to give people the false impression that affordable housing or low-income housing all looks like this. This is far from the truth. Most buildings I work with have maybe 1 or 2 incidences of bed bugs. There are some buildings that, they have a building-wide infestation, but we're getting better at controlling bed bugs. So these really bad infestations should be fewer and further between. I'm going to show some products, some pictures of products that are not meant as endorsements, merely as for illustrative purposes. And Christy, are you ready? We're going to try to run a poll because first I want to hear from you. I want to know, are you seeing more bed bugs? Are you seeing bed bugs cases increasing, decreasing, about the same, or you just never see them? You're just here because you want to be prepared. But yeah, so let us know if you can, hopefully you can answer that poll and we're going to show you the results. I'm just curious, and be mindful that in the summer, all insect populations pick up. So you might have seen a bump or more infestations over the summer, but compare it with last summer. So are you seeing as a whole over the last 6 months to a year, are you seeing them increase, decrease, about the same, or never see them? And when you think, Christy, that enough people have answered you, if you could go ahead and share the results, are they still
It's
answering?
still coming in right now. We
Okay,
have
well, we'll give you
106,
another few
100.
seconds.
Yeah, we have 167 people now with
Awesome.
22% saying increased and 8% saying decrease, 41% saying about the same, and 30% saying I have never seen them.
Is there a way you can share those results? They share
I
results.
am looking. I think I would have to share my screen.
Oh, no,
So
no,
I
that's
will
okay.
put them into the chat so
Okay,
that
thank you.
everyone can see them. I'm going
So
to,
what won? What was the most, what was
the
the,
most one is 40% at about the same.
about the same? Okay, and then how many people said increasing? Sorry.
In increasing was 22%.
Okay, and again, what was decreasing?
Decreasing is 7%.
Okay, so that's very interesting because I think this represents a cross section of the country. And you could take the poll down. I think we're good. So that's really interesting because I know in the media we're seeing that they're increasing. So oh, there's our results. There we go. So hopefully you guys can see them. So about the same makes sense to me. We did see a little pickup after COVID because people started traveling again and people weren't always getting pest control taken care of during COVID. So we did see that bump after COVID. Okay, but thank you. Thanks so much for sharing your experience. And thanks, Christy, for plowing through that.
You're welcome. A little bumpy, but we got there. Thank you.
All right, so I have to skip this slide. I have this in as my just in case. Okay, so I'm not gonna get too much into biology here because I think we're all pretty familiar with bed bugs, especially some of you in your positions have probably seen bed bugs before, but I just want to mention a few things about the biology. We're talking about Cimex lectularius. This is the common bed bug. There are other relatives. We have the tropical bed bug in the US. We have the bat bug in the US. So there's other species, but the one that we're most concerned with is this common bed bug that infests homes most frequently, right? So what are we seeing here? Everybody who talks about bed bugs has to make this point because it's so weird. Bed bugs practice something called traumatic insemination. Um, this is just a really strange reproductive adaptation where the male pokes a hole in the female's abdomen and injects the sperm right into her abdomen, makes a hole in her, and she's all set for life. She has enough sperm to fertilize all the eggs that she's going to lay in her lifetime, about 200 eggs. But she's not going to lay them all at once. And honestly, if you were that female bed bug, would you want to go back to where all the guys were hanging out? Probably not. So one theory we had, I don't think it's proven because I think all bed bugs kind of wander around, but the female is probably going to want to get away from the aggregation from that group of bed bugs because they don't want to be mated again, because every time they get mated, that lowers their survival rate, right? Every time they get a wound. So she's going to walk away. And as she walks away, she's going to lay an egg here. She's going to lay an egg there. She is going to make the problem a lot worse. With bugs that lay all their eggs in one spot, it's easy to find that, egg cluster and get rid of it. Bed bugs, they're adapted to just spread out because they're going to lay eggs everywhere. And that makes them difficult to control. From egg to adult, it takes about 5 weeks to 4 months, depending on how often they get a blood meal. We used to say they can live up to a year. Those were outliers. It's possible, but we're finding that more often bed bugs live maybe 4 months to 6 months. Here's what they look like fed and unfed. Lovely little creatures. They can look quite different, being fed and unfed. They start off as an egg that's about the size of a sprinkle, an ice cream sprinkle. It's appetizing analogy. So then they, each time they have a blood meal, they shed their skin. They shed their skin 5 times until they become mature, sexually reproductive adults. That's what we're seeing on the left, the male and the female. They cannot reproduce until they get to that 5th stage, and if they don't have a blood meal, they will not become sexually reproductive adults. So that's kind of the concept behind how those mattress encasements work, right? We're blocking them from getting a blood meal. They will never mature and reproduce. The eggs are quite tiny. Let me zoom in on them a little bit more. So you can see these are hatched eggs, and they're almost the thickness of that mattress thread there. So they're hard to see, hard to find. So often we have to look for other signs. But first, before we talk about the other signs, how do they spread? Where are they coming from? Well, they're not outside like a lot of bugs trying to get in for the winter. They only exist with us. Most of the time they hitchhike into buildings on our belongings, on furniture, used furniture, discarded furniture, backpacks, or even laundry that we brought to the laundromat. Then once they're in a building, they're going to crawl along wires and pipes and under doors. This is a really important point that I wanted to start off making because I think it's the most important point of my presentation, that these genetic studies have proven 1 to 2 introductions are responsible for most multifamily housing infestations. That means building-wide infestations only need 1 or 2 introductions, right? This is out of University of North Carolina, Kobe Shaw's lab. They did genetic studies. They looked at the genetics of bed bugs in buildings and compared them. So this is pretty amazing to have this knowledge. We've had it since 2012, yet we still see property managers, landlords blaming the tenants, when more likely it's just a lack of good control allowed the bed bug infestation to spread from that one introduction to the rest of the building. So my mission is to say, let's stop blaming the residents. And this is a case in point. I'm going to show you this apartment at a housing authority I was working with. This poor gentleman, he did everything right. He did all the preparation instructions. He put everything he owned in bags and bins, and he followed the instructions to a T. He even, sadly, we would never recommend this, got rid of his bed. He was sleeping on the floor. Is he ever going to get rid of these bed bugs? No. They were behind the cove base molding here, and that is not his responsibility. He can't do anything about it. He tried to pour boiling water all along his edge of his wall, so he knew it was an issue, but the real issue here is the building management has a responsibility now to fix this, because there's nothing this gentleman can do that is going to get rid of the bed bugs in his walls behind that cove-based molding. So let's stop blaming residents is my message. Also, and along with that, we asked residents to do so much prep, and then we blame them when they can't do it. Well, I work in elderly and disabled housing, and I often say, think about your grandmother doing this. Think about your elderly mother. If they lived alone, could they move all their furniture? Could they vacuum? Could they wash everything in their home? Probably not. Could I do it? I question that. But pest control companies give the same instructions to that 82-year-old, woman living alone as they would an able-bodied 30-year-old. They don't make, different instructions for different groups of people, which they probably should. So yes, like some of these instructions are 2 pages long, impossible for elderly or disabled people. We cannot rely on them to do the prep. And is it even necessary? In some cases, I would argue it is not. Clearing out under the bed is necessary. Doing laundry is necessary, but moving every piece of furniture, doing all the vacuuming and moving before a professional comes is going to scatter the population around. I rather have a professional look at the population before it gets disturbed. So it also gives an excuse to the pest control company. If they can't get a control over the infestation, they're going to be like, oh, well, the resident didn't comply with the preparation instructions. So we're not taking that anymore. And like I said, excessive prep is usually not needed except in really heavy infestations. Minimal prep in low-level infestations is all we need. This other issue with the discarding furniture, we really try to work with landlords to discourage residents from discarding furniture. This is how bed bugs spread. Someone discards a bed that has bed bugs, somebody else is going to see that bed and pick it up and bring it right back in and spread the problem around. And even if we do get rid of the bed, like that picture I showed you, it doesn't make a difference if the bed bugs are already in the infrastructure, they're already in the structure. If furniture does have to be disposed of, we say use furniture bags so we don't drop bed bugs through a building in multifamily housing. Destroy the items so they just don't, it's not enough to just spray paint bed bugs on them. You actually have to make them unusable, and then arrange for those items to be picked up right away. They should not sit around. So no discarding furniture. The other issue that we see, and especially myself, because I work in low-income housing, often the property managers or procurement specialists for these bigger property management companies or the landlord, whoever is deciding who to hire, they're going to hire the lowest bid contract or the most inexpensive treatment. And what that generally is a spray treatment where somebody is going to come in, a pest control company is going to come in, spray things, and walk out. So low-cost treatments, more spraying. What we've done here is created these super bugs and increased the resistance, the chemical resistance of the bed bugs. So these products are no longer working. It is not uncommon to find a building that has a chronic infestation for 10 years because all they've been doing is using sprays, and the sprays don't work. They are resistant to them. Now, I won't kill all the bugs. We've created super bed bugs. So now we've gone through all the problems or some of the problems. What's the solution? Well, my job is to tell you about integrated pest management, or IPM. And that is not one way of doing things. IPM is a strategy that we use to approach pest problems that always starts with inspecting and monitoring to make sure we have or we don't have the pests, and then identify correctly. We don't want to spend thousands of dollars on bed bug treatment when we actually have carpet beetles, right? And then we want to scale the response. That means there's different treatments that should take place for a really heavy infestation with 10,000 bed bugs versus 10 bed bugs. And we have to scale the response. It might not just be that one apartment. It might be the whole building. Use multiple tools. That means we cannot rely on chemicals alone. There has to be some non-chemical tools in the mix. And then evaluate success. Did this treatment work or didn't it? How do you know? You're going to inspect and monitor again. So that will tell you if you have, continuing pest problems or if the treatment worked. When we usually talk about IPM with other pests, I describe it as we have the three-legged stool. This pest population needs food, water, and shelter. And if we take one of those away, that whole stool will topple, right? So can we eliminate these for bed bugs is the question. And if you were with me in person, I would put you on the spot and make you guys answer, but the answer is no, we can't. We are their food. They don't need water, they drink our blood, and our homes are their shelter anywhere in our home. Can you leave your home for 6 months to a year? No, you can't. So that's not the solution with bed bugs. In fact, with my excellent animation skills, I've showed you that these bed bugs have just moved right into the stool. So it takes a little more, it's a little more challenging to apply IPM to bed bugs is my point. Another little side note, I don't say exterminator. You'll notice I say pest management professional, or we abbreviate that with PMP, or more often I probably use pest control technician. The reason for that shift is we don't want to imply that an exterminator is going to come in and just wipe everything out, take care of our problems with just a single, spray down. We want to imply that this is a management situation. We have to manage the pests, and it takes skills and technical skills. So moving on to our IPM strategy, the first strategy is to identify and make sure we actually have bed bugs, right? So in your line of work, I'm sure you see other mistaken identities quite often, or we have people that are getting bites, but we don't know if those are fleas or mosquitoes. They're probably flea bites. That, in my experience, that's what I run into the most. But there are some others that can look like and be mistaken for bed bugs. So it's really important to get a good ID. You've probably seen some of these. What would really confuse most of us is if we found a bat bug, because you have to look under the microscope to tell the difference between a bat bug and a bed bug. But the difference is very important because with bat bugs, you have a whole nother infestation that you have to take care of. You have a bat infestation. So it's important to know what you're dealing with. You might not find a live bed bug in most infestations, right? Because the most infestations we see are low level and mid level, and the bugs are reclusive, they hide. So we might see the fecal spotting. That's what you're seeing on lovely little dots on the screen. It looks like somebody took a Sharpie marker on a sheet, or that's a mattress encasement, and just put little dots on it. That's typically what it looks like. The other sign might be the resident is getting bites, but that's, I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. You remember how I said they shed their skin so many times? Well, actually the shed skins are probably the most common sign that you'll see because there's so many around, right? You'll probably see dead bed bugs. They don't live forever. And then the last thing you might see would be a live bed bug, but you probably have to look hard to find those living bugs unless it's a very heavy infestation. So here's some more of the signs. Here's some nymphs in action and some spotting and some shed skins. The bites, let's take a minute to talk about the bites. They usually happen when it's dark. We don't feel it when they bite us. They inject something into us to make us numb. And the most important thing is there is no evidence right now that there's any disease transmission. There is no evidence right now. There is potential that we will find out in the future that bed bugs do vector diseases, but we don't have proof right now. They can manipulate things in a lab, but in the field, we have no evidence. Okay, so that should reassure you. And one other piece that should reassure you is think about a mosquito, and that's a common vector of diseases. Mosquitoes will jump from host to host, even jump from species to species, right? So there's more potential to introduce diseases, whereas bed bugs are going to spend most of their lives in one room on one host or within the same family, so less potential. But stay tuned, there's always new research coming out. Not everybody reacts the same, right? Some people don't react at all. So the bites are not a reliable sign of an infestation. You have to have other evidence. Okay, we've identified we have a bed bug infestation. Now what do we do? What would a successful treatment include? Inspecting and monitoring. Of course, that is the staple with an IPM program. We have to know if there is a problem, and we have to use the inspecting and monitoring to know if we have successfully eliminated it. So when should inspecting and monitoring happen? It's complicated. You're going to hear a lot of different advice, but in what I generally advise is in multifamily housing, every unit should be inspected at least once a year. If there is a current infestation in a unit, you should be inspecting every 2 weeks because that's about as often as treatment should be happening. So every 2 weeks, an inspection, and if needed, a treatment. And those inspections should go on after the treatment has ended. Sometimes professionals don't do that. Sometimes, housing staff have to play that role. But we want to see somebody inspecting those formerly infested units at least monthly for a while, and then maybe 4 times a year. We don't want to walk away from that. We've treated them. We think we're done. The pest control company says, yeah, we got it. It's done. Don't walk away just yet because it takes about 6 months for the few bed bugs that might have been missed under the carpet, in the walls, for them to reproduce enough to get up to a noticeable population level again. If you are regularly exposed to bed bugs in your work, I would recommend just inspect monthly, or better yet, just inspect every time you change your sheets. I use mattress encasements on my sheets, and I also use monitors, and I'll talk a little bit, show you some monitors. But just in case, if I know I'm high risk because I'm exposed more than the average person, so I take precautions and I keep my eye out. When are bed bugs most active? Well, obviously we know when people are resting or sleeping. If somebody works the night shift, then they're going to adjust to the sleep schedule of their host, right? So, but most of the time they're hiding during the day, which makes it hard to see them, but it also helps because we're less likely to pick up hitchhikers during the day. So how do we know the bed bugs are there? And that's where the monitors come in. So there's several types of monitors out there. There's passive monitors like the climb up interceptor I'm showing on the right that sits below the bed leg. That is called a passive monitor because there's no lure in it. The lure is the person in the bed. So every bed bug in that home is going to eventually need to eat. So they're going to work their way towards the bed, and these cups that are slippery on the inside trap them in there. They can't climb out. Bed bugs don't have like sticky feet like cockroaches do. They have little claws that help them climb on upholstered surfaces, but have a harder time climbing up untextured surfaces, right? So those are really helpful in telling us, how's the infestation going? Are we done? Do we have it? The outer ring tells us the bugs crawled from outside the bed. If we see them in the inner circle, they've come from the bed. The other monitors, the active monitors, like the Sensei ones, have a lure in them that duplicate a human scent, and they draw the bugs in that are a few feet away. What doesn't work are those sticky traps that rely on the bugs to walk into them, because bed bugs are very particular about what surfaces they walk on. They're not going to walk into a sticky trap. They might drop onto it and get stuck, and that's the concept behind the one on the cardboard trap on the left. That surface that vial on is very sticky, so the bed bugs accidentally drop in because they're attracted to the scent, and then they can't get out. In the middle one, it's just slippery and they can't climb back up the surface, and that's how they get trapped. There's a new test that I'm excited about. I know nothing about it, but this should excite you guys too. We'll keep our ears open for more news, but this TrueDex test is a genetic test. So like a COVID test, like you swab the bed and you're looking for the bed bug DNA. So very exciting if that becomes more widely available and cheap enough, because that could be a real time saver. People always ask me about dogs. I don't want to get into dogs, but I encourage you, if you have questions about using dogs to find bed bugs, please talk to me, because there's a lot of caveats. There's a lot of, well, if you're going to do it, you want to do the following. They're really better for places with uniform scents, like I'm thinking libraries and movie theaters. There's not as many competing scents, so that's where they're really valuable. But they can be used in housing, just with a few caveats. You want to make sure you have really well-trained dogs and certifications. But yeah, I encourage you to get in touch and we can talk about that further if that's something you're interested in learning more about. What we recommend is a quick visual inspection. And I encourage property managers I work with to train their staff to do quick visual inspections while they're doing a housekeeping inspection. And in most properties that I work with, because I work in HUD assisted properties, there's an annual housekeeping inspection. So anyway, what we need to do to confirm there's bed bugs is generally just inspect the sofas and the beds. Focus on the signs that are easy to detect, use a flashlight, and look up at the ceiling juncture closest to the bed and the framed pictures over the bed, the bed bugs are going to gravitate towards higher places, but also towards the head side of the bed where they sense our breath. Okay. Another helpful visual inspection tool, if you don't have one already, is a flashlight with a UV setting. All biological matter fluoresces with the UV lights. It's kind of gross, but if you're you might already use this, especially for inspecting for rodents, because you can find mice trails. But anyway, look, you can see the bed bug eggs will fluoresce and make them easier to find and locate. Also, extra sticky lint roller is a really good inspection tool to run it over a couch to quickly check to see if there's anything comes up. Any bugs come up, there will be stuff that comes up. So why do we want to inspect and monitor? Why not wait for complaints? Why not be reactive? Why be proactive, right? Well, many people don't report that they have bed bugs. They're afraid they're going to be charged or evicted. In HUD supported housing, where I've spent the most of my career, the landlord is responsible for paying for treatment, and that makes it more likely that someone's going to report that they have bed bugs. If they think they're going to have to pay for it, they're going to try to use that can of Raid and take care of it themselves, and it's going to spread through the building. So it's really to the landlord's advantage to take on the cost of the control, because they can actually hire a professional and do it correctly. Some people are embarrassed to complain. I'm sure you could understand that. Most people, like a lot of people in elderly housing where I work, are unaware of the signs. They don't know they have them. They can't see the bed bugs. They're not getting bitten. They're getting bitten, but they're not reacting. So they just don't know. Many people do not react to the bites, and Cheng Luong, a brilliant entomologist at Rutgers University, does all of his research in public housing, so I rely on him a lot. What he found in New Jersey public housing is landlords or property managers were missing most of the infestations because they were relying on complaints. When he looked through every apartment in these buildings that he was studying, he found the landlords were missing about 67% of the infested units. That's a lot, and those can get out of hand quickly. Our next step in our strategy is scaling the response. This is something that you should be sharing with building managers, housing staff, that if they have one unit infested, you need to be inspecting the surrounding units, because the bed bugs are spreading through the holes in the walls, the utility lines, under doors, in laundry rooms. If there's one infestation found, all the neighboring units, across the hall especially, should be inspected. And then you can even go further and say, well, who have you been hanging out with? And we'll provide your friend with an inspection too. So we really have to be detectives, but it's a no-brainer that we should be inspecting, at least inspecting the surrounding units. And then, of course, I mentioned this, building-wide inspections can be done at least yearly. Why is it important to detect them? Well, if we find them early, they are so much easier to address and eliminate. This is a graphic that the company BASF uses to train technicians. What they're showing here is that early on in an infestation, most of the population, 56 to 70% of the population, is going to be on the bed or the sofa. A few have left and a few have gone to other harborages. Compare that with a later on in an advanced infestation that we haven't been controlling. Now 56% of the population has moved off the bed. That's going to make it way more tricky to address. So what are the non-chemical tools? When I talked about using multiple tools, we have to use non-chemical tools because the pesticides just don't work the way they used to. We have developed resistant bed bugs. Those tools can be a vacuum. I'm going to talk about is essential. I'm going to talk about a couple of these in a little more detail, but for now, the most important non-chemical tools that we have are vacuums, exclusion, sealing those paths, figuring out where they're coming in and out, encasements, making sure people don't have to throw out their mattresses, but also making, helping with the infestation. Heat, really important. I'm going to talk about heat. And then, of course, cold. Oh, this picture was somebody using a steamer. Cold doesn't work as well as heat, but it's still a useful tool in some circumstances, and I'll touch on that. So vacuuming can quickly remove a big part of the population. The eggs are sticky, won't always remove the eggs. What you're seeing here is the Atrix vacuum is what a professional should be using. A everyday person trying to control bed bugs in their own home can use their own vacuum. And what we share is if you take a knee-high pantyhose and you put it in the hose of the vacuum, and then you put the crevice tool on top of that, anything that you vacuum up will get stuck in that knee-high pantyhose, and you can tie that off and then throw that out instead of having to clean out your vacuum or change the bag. Why is vacuuming so important? Why should it be absolutely included in every treatment protocol? Well, because it removes the bugs, right? It removes the live bugs. It removes the dead bugs. It removes the shed skins. Look at this mess, what you're looking at. I'm going to explain this picture in a second. It's horrific. It prepares the area for treatment. What are we seeing right here? We're seeing pesticide just sprayed right on top of this pile of dead bed bugs and shed skins. It's not really going to reach the bugs that are in the cracks and crevices because we have just piles of dead bed bugs here. Also, the young bed bugs will hide in the shed skins of the older bed bugs. So creates hiding places for them where they're got another layer of protection from the pesticides. But the most important reason is how else will we know this infestation is resolved? So we go in, we see this. Let me explain the scenario, how I saw this. I'm in an apartment with two elderly people, and they are both in wheelchairs. They do not own a vacuum. There's two technicians that are covering this building, and what do? They lift up the bed. Something else that these residents couldn't do. They lift up the bed, and this is what you're looking at is the bed frame railing, the bed frame essentially where the box spring sat. He lifts that up, he sprays it, and he's got his buddy, so they both work together, and then they put the mattress back down. And he looks up at me and he knows exactly what he did wrong. He looks up at me, he goes, "I'll bring a vacuum next time." So they know, right? They know we need a vacuum in order to address this properly, but they're going to save time. They're going to take shortcuts if there's no oversight and nobody's saying, "What are you doing?" So now this guy, they come back in 2 weeks, right? And they see the same thing. Do they know if the infestation has been eliminated? No, because we're still seeing evidence. We don't know if that's new evidence or we don't know if that's the, evidence from 2 weeks ago. So that's really, vacuum has to be part of con a control protocol. When I work with properties sometimes who have a pest control contract, they're locked into the contract, they can't get out of it. The contractor is only doing chemical sprays. Then I advise this is something you can train your maintenance staff to do, and it just has to get done at some point. Mattress and box spring encasements are really helpful. I say the box spring encasement is almost even more important than the mattress encasement because there's more places to hide, but in the box spring. So it creates a smoother surface for inspection. Any bed bugs that got trapped in there, ideally we vacuumed it first. We don't want to think about trapping bed bugs in there, but it happens. But they get trapped in there and then they cannot bite. So they're encased in this special encasement and they cannot bite through that encasement. So they starve and they eventually die. They can't become reproductive adults. The key difference between this bed bug mattress encasement and maybe an allergy mattress encasement is the zipper. Has to have a zipper that stays closed and the teeth are fine enough not to let the bed bugs crawl in and out. But you can see they take advantage of any little folds and stuff in fabric. And there's no need for insecticides on the mattresses. Hopefully we're not seeing that. And no need to dispose of mattresses because for the low-income people that I work with, this is a huge, for anyone buying a mattress is a huge expense, right? And you're supposed to leave them in place for a year. And if they get a tear in them, a piece of tape over it. Heat has been called the Achilles heel of the bed bugs. It really works well. It kills the eggs. Pesticides don't kill the eggs. The thermal death point for the eggs is 122. For nymphs and adults, 118 Fahrenheit. But the heat has to reach those hard to reach spaces. The air temperature is irrelevant. And of course, heat can cause damage. So best left to professionals. Steam's been gaining traction as an excellent form of bed bug control. It kills all stages, penetrates into cracks and crevices, and leaves no pesticide residue, which has pros and cons. The pro is we're not exposed to the pesticides. The con is there's no protection after you've steamed. Clothes dryer, most accessible heating tool we have, 30 minutes on high, don't overfill it. Even dry clean only items can go in the dryer. There's also whole unit heat treatments, and these can be done with electric systems or propane systems. Best left to the professional. The equipment is expensive. There's a little prep that has to be done, but the PMPs will move things around and circulate the heat with the fans, and some items cannot take the heat. Medications and all that have to be put in the fridge, so some precautions have to be taken. There's also portable heat chambers, and this is a staff in this tent-like structure that you can use to heat up sensitive items, wheelchairs, baby cribs, or the person's laundry who just isn't doing laundry. So this is a nice accessible tool that buildings can purchase and move from unit to unit. Freezing, you can use the freezer. It has to be 0 degrees at least 4 days. This is still controversial. We're not sure that this actually works. I've had some people tell me, no, I took the bed bugs out of the freezer and they started walking around after weeks. So if, you know, in some cases, the CD collection that we can't treat otherwise, maybe we put in the freezer. Professionals use a cryonite freeze treatment. It only kills on contact. It won't even kill a bed bug that is under a piece of paper. It has to hit them directly. Then finally, we are at pesticides. What are we want to see pesticides only used to confirm when an infestation is confirmed. We don't want to use pesticides as preventatives. That's that doesn't work. Pesticides only last maybe 2 weeks, realistically. So they're not preventatives. They're used only when there is pests. Only professionals should use pesticides. I'm going to get to why I have this big X over this this raid aisle. Only cracks and crevices should be treated. We shouldn't be broadcasting pesticides all over the place. At least 2 treatments are needed by a professional because the pesticides don't kill the eggs. So we have to wait for the eggs that weren't killed to hatch out and then treat again. So it's never a one and done situation. Bed bugs are tolerant. I think I've said this 1,000 times already, but they're tolerant of many of the insecticides that we use. But this especially applies to these ones that me and you can buy at the hardware store, the grocery store. And also, I just want to make the comment that, boy, looks so safe and like, why wouldn't anyone pick this stuff up? It's right next to the Barbie display. But we do have to consider pesticide exposure over and over in our most intimate places. It is pesticide exposure, and it is not the safest way to do things, right? And also note that there's both chemical and natural pesticides, and most of the ones that you and I buy or hear about online, they're going to act as repellents. They're going to push the bed bugs away. And if you're getting a professional treatment, that does not going to work out. You're going to push them away from the professional treatment. So they never should be used while there's a professional treatment happening. They probably shouldn't be used at all, but I recognize there's some people that cannot afford professional treatments. So what are the options? We have sprays that are contact and residual. Residuals are what the professionals use. Contact spray would be me and you having to directly spray the insect to kill it. Dusts like desiccant dusts. If you're a gardener, you may have heard of diatomaceous earth. Well, the pest control version of that is Cymexa, which is a silica dust, and that's the picture there. These dusts are applied with bulb dusters or dust tools that spray like a fine powder. Bed bugs are not going to walk through a giant pile. You want to fool them into walking across this very light layer of dust. I just crossed aerosols off because there's no aerosols that are available for me and you. Professionals can get them, but the bug bombs, the foggers, and the sprays that come in aerosol cans do not work. There's fumigants. Don't worry about these. They're not especially common. I'll just show you one that you should be aware of. And then there's impregnated mattress liners. That company ActiveGuard makes a dust and bed bug cover for mattresses. These are especially dangerous. I'm just sharing this with you because if you see one of these DDVP dichlorvos impregnated resin strips out in the open, they're being used improperly. They should only be used in enclosed airtight spaces, and that is what the label says. These are one of the few organophosphates left on, available, and it is not a good thing to be breathing in, especially if you are an elderly person who spends 24/7 in your home and you're constantly breathing this in. Just be aware, this is a a dangerous pesticide. Okay, the really good news is we have a new biological treatment called, it's a fungus, Bovaria bassiana. It's been used for pest control on farms for decades. It doesn't affect humans, just affects the bugs. The product is called Apprehend. It's not something you or I could buy. It takes specialized equipment to apply it. But I want to talk about this picture here. What we're looking at is a really clever technique for addressing hoarded or cluttered environments. And you can use this with another pesticide, but this is just the people at Apprehend demonstrating this, Nina Jenkins. So what's going on here? We don't want treatment to be denied, even if a home has a lot of clutter. One thing that these researchers in Virginia Tech and with the Apprehend people are doing is they put all the clutter in one area or at the edges of the room, and then they put a tape line and ask the resident, do not move anything over this taped line. Just take things from here and put them back. The concept is, if there are bed bugs in any of that stuff, where are they going to go to get their food? They're going to go towards the bed. And what these guys are doing, I don't know if I can play this again, is they're applying the pesticide around that tape. So whenever the bed bugs leave that clutter, they're going to have to walk across that line of pesticide. And the way Apprehend works is just one has to walk across it and then go meet up in the aggregation, or the where all the other bugs are hanging out, and they spread the disease to their brothers and sisters and friends. So they work for us. So it's brilliant. Finally, to evaluate success, you need to confirm elimination. We have to ask the resident, are you getting more bites? There has to be a visual inspection. Monitors should show no new activity, and property managers, landlords should be reviewing records to make sure we don't have, a situation like I'm going to show you next. So 3 to 6 months post-treatment, we still want to keep an eye on things. Oh, I'll show actually my, I'm going to talk about this first. What doesn't work is chemical only approaches, repeating them over and over and expecting different results. Heat treatments that don't reach the thermal death point and don't get into the cracks and crevices, not including follow-up inspections. We have to keep inspecting because we may have missed some, and it takes a long time for that population to build up again. One-time treatments don't work. Over-the-counter products, just no. Home remedies, no. And rubbing alcohol, I want to address this. A lot of people spray rubbing alcohol on themselves to protect themselves. Once it's evaporated, it's not going to do anything. It's not a repellent. And it really takes actually a lot of rubbing alcohol to actually kill a bed bug. You have to drown them in it. So just forget the rubbing alcohol. It's a fire hazard. So here's the slide I wanted to talk about. So this is when I ask for records, from some folks, it's like nobody has ever looked at them. So I'll look at them for the first time. And this one I've been using since 2015. This is how many times this one apartment has been treated for bed bugs. Somebody should be looking at this and being like, 11 treatments and it's not working yet. Something's going wrong. This last summer, I was working with a property with a problematic unit. The problem was the treatment, it wasn't the person. But I asked, how many times has this unit been treated? Because I knew this building had bed bugs for a very long time. Anyway, they didn't know. They had to look up the records 44 times. 44 times that man, who did not speak English, so he couldn't advocate for himself, his home was sprayed with chemicals every 2 weeks for years, 44 times. That is just unacceptable, right? So we have to be looking out for these things, because what is this? This is insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right? All right, so that's control. Now in the couple minutes I'm wrapping up here. I know I want to leave time for questions, but I just want to address personal protection. What can you do if you know you're going to be entering a home with bed bugs? If I'm concerned about biting insects, I will put on insect repellent before I enter a home. I'm more likely to get, in my world and probably in yours, we're more likely to get bitten by fleas, and fleas do spread diseases. So, feel free to use insect repellent, natural or, DEET. wear booties because that is where the most common site you'll pick up bed bugs would be on your shoes. And I wear no frill shoes, smooth surface, light color, no deep treads, easy to inspect. I avoid sitting on upholstered surfaces. If I have to move furniture, I'm going to change those clothes when I leave, and I try not to lean up against things. If you are meeting with someone that meets with clients, meet in the kitchen, bring your own stool. Don't leave your stuff on upholstered surfaces. You can inspect when you leave with a lint roller and put any suspect items in your tote or in a plastic bag, and I usually leave those outside until I have time to put them in the wash or something. In your car, you want to inspect before you leave a building. If you can, change your clothes before you leave. If you can't, vacuum your car out regularly. I put a white plastic trash bag on my seat in case one drops off my clothing. I'll be able to see it. But also, bed bugs hate the feel of this smooth surface, so they'll probably stay on your clothes if they had the choice whether to walk off of you or onto this plastic. In your home, you can create a clean zone. They often have to do this at schools where there's a kid with a chronic infestation. The idea here is take your clothes off over the sheet, roll it up like a burrito, put it in the bin, and then you address it. How do you address it? In the dryer on high or through the wash. Always bring an extra set of clothes. I think I mentioned that. You can use dissolvable laundry bags, throw the whole thing in the laundry so you never have to open it up. And even dry clean only items and shoes can go in the dryer. And remember, an introduction is not an infestation. One male bed bug or one immature bed bug coming home with you can never result in an infestation. You need a pregnant female or you need two to tango, right? Whew. And before I show you some of the resources I wanted to share and take questions, something I'm working on and I would love your feedback is I'm picturing like a little card, like a cheat sheet card that inspectors can bring and look through all these questions to help guide the conversation towards more effective treatments. Are there monitors in all the units or in the high-risk units? Is the pest control company inspecting neighboring units? Are they using assessment-based prep instructions? Are they using non-chemical tools? Are they using a vacuum? Do they dust the wall voids? Do they have a pesticide rotation schedule to prevent pesticide resistance? Are there two treatments automatically scheduled? Do they confirm elimination? And then, so on. You can ask the landlord, what are they doing? Several questions to kind of get at where approach are they taking, where could they be improved. So this is under development and I'm very excited to develop some sort of tool, but I do need feedback. So anybody get excited about this, want to talk to me about it, I'd welcome a conversation outside of today. And finally, some resources. If you want to scan the QR code, you get to the New York State IPM bedbug resources page where you'll find some picture-based low literacy guides, step-by-step, how to bedbug management, how to get bed bugs out of your belongings, this guide for bed bugs in shelters and group living, and just some general bedbug information. There's also the Stop Pests in Housing website that I already talked about, has tools for property managers and other housing professionals. And this guide, I've asked you guys to put some of these are in the chat already. Maybe we can put them in the chat again. This is how to select a bed bug control provider by Texas A&M, and it gives you an interview card to might be helpful if you're helping somebody select a bed bug control provider. Okay. Oh, some more resources from Stop Pests, and these are our picture guides on stop cockroaches, stop mice, stop bed bugs. We try to have some low literacy guides as well. And with that, I will shut up and try to listen to some questions.
Well, Susannah, that was just fabulous information, although a little creepy, I have to admit. So thank you so much for sharing it. And yes, we do have some questions. If we
Okay.
do not get through all the questions, we will upload them when we put the video up on the NEHA YouTube channel. So Suzanne, I will send you those questions. You can answer them and we will upload them on YouTube so everyone can see those. The
Okay.
first questions that were coming in was, can the bed bugs travel through a vent system?
Yes, but more likely they're on the outside of the vent system. So we had a weird case of a building that kept finding bed bugs in bathtubs, and that's a weird place to find bed bugs, but they were traveling along the outside of the vents, the air vents, and dropping into the tubs, the bathrooms. But yes, that is a common thing that we see. It'd be harder to travel through the vents if there's forced air, but yes, good detective work. That does happen.
Oh my goodness. Okay, the next one that we got was if you vacuum without using the pantyhose method, will they able to stay in the vacuum and crawl out of the vacuum?
Yes. So you have to take precautions. So if it was a vacuum that was going to be used repeatedly, what the professionals do is they'll stuff something in the hose or they'll stuff something in so nothing can crawl back out. If it's a homeowner, what you want to do is empty the canister, clean it out, make sure there's none, no bed bugs in the filter. If it's a bagged vacuum, you actually want to, take that bag out, bag it up, and throw it away outside.
Okay,
Some people vacuum up a little diatomaceous earth, and that if there any of and professionals do this too, but they use a product called Cymexa. Um, that way they get killed once they're in the vacuum.
okay. Next question is, how does a residual pesticide work on a bed bug? The chemicals need to penetrate the shell?
Yeah, so this is like a miracle of science, I guess. So when the pesticides are formulated to stick to the feet of the bugs as they walk across it, but really this is a fault with pesticides because they have to pick up enough of it to kill them. And if they're only picking up a little, that might not kill them. Also, once they've dried, although companies say they last or they have a residual, meaning they'll be active for about a month, it's really, according to most of the researchers I know, it's 2 weeks that they're going to be active. Once they dry, they get less and less effective.
Okay, another question is, can bed bugs feed on your pets?
Yeah, they can, but it's very unlikely. If you think about the body shape of a flea, they're made for getting through fur. A bed bug is fat and wide and it's not really good at navigating through fur. So birds, they can infest, and it's mainly people. But if a bed bug is hungry enough, they might find that little naked part of the dog's belly.
Oh, I don't like hearing that. So we have time for probably about one more question. This one is steam treatment. Sounds like a good treatment. However, does it cause mattress, clothes, and furniture to get wet?
Yeah, so it's a high heat. These are professional steamers. They're not using like the same type of steamer that, your little clothes steamer, although that might work. Just don't know if that would have enough, heat. But no, it's dry steam. And in the picture I showed, I didn't get into it too much because we didn't have a lot of time, but there's a cloth over the top so that doesn't shoot it out, like that shoot the bed bugs. It slows it down, and it just puts out like really high heat. It's also so hot that the water evaporates pretty quickly, but it can damage some items, so it's not great for everything, but it's a pretty cool tool.
Okay, unfortunately, we are out of time, Susanna, but we have quite a few more questions
I
for you.
see.
So we will go ahead and send those to you, and those can be answered. And I hope that everyone who has attended has enjoyed this session. And we ask you to please take a few minutes and fill out the short survey. Your feedback is instrumental in allowing us to bring you the topics that you need and complete our mission, which is to build, sustain, and empower an effective environmental workforce. Be sure to check our NEHA YouTube channel. You can rewatch this session and also read the questions and answers. So Susanna, again, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise. And we wish everyone a nice and pleasant rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.